Hello, this is Kevin Stang with CU Excel. Thank you for joining me today for a branch reopening or closing. Just like to start off by telling you a little bit about myself. I am a 25-year veteran of the credit union industry. Been a consultant most of that time doing strategic planning, product development, and of course, over 100 market analyses for credit unions throughout the country. Today we're going to talk about reopening those branches or not reopening those branches that were temporarily closed due to the pandemic. I decided to do this presentation after more than one credit union had mentioned they're considering not reopening some of the branches that they temporarily closed. So I wanted to throw together some pros and cons, and I'll start with the pros, then we'll look at some financials, we'll go through the cons. To begin with, here are some of the pros to keeping the branch closed. Number one, great increases in e-service adoption. Our members are now becoming more acclimated to using the credit union without having to visit a branch. Number two, relocation. Your branch might have been at one point down a prime location near that KFC and that Subway, and now a half mile down the street they open up a Chick-fil-A and a Panera and a Starbucks and everything else, and you're no longer in a happening spot. So we had to close our branch temporarily, but when we reopen it, we're going to be in a better location to serve our members. We need to continue to grow. And to reshuffle a branch, that means in order to open one, we got to close one. If your branch right now is in an area that has no growth, and there's a lot of other growth areas within the marketplace, then closing a branch in a non-growth area and opening a branch in a growing area is perfectly reasonable. Next, reshuffling of the staff. I know that doesn't sound great, but it actually is what's happening throughout all different industries right now. Some of the top producers within companies are the ones that are the first to come back, while those that really never did align with the culture are sitting back. And finally, the last reason is if you're in an aged market, this is just a market where you've had a branch there for an extremely long time. It's a much more mature market. You don't have those younger households that are willing to switch financial institutions. You probably are not seeing any increase in market share and maybe even a decline. So those are the pros. Before we get to the cons, let's just see how we would put together an analysis to see if we can pull this off financially. I have an example map right here. It's actually my hometown, and each one of these ovals would be a location. And you'll have the one on the left over here is the area that we're considering closing, and then we have two other branches that are within a fair distance. If we were to close the branch, those account holders could still be serviced a reasonable distance away. And then I have this red oval here, and this is where I'm going to keep tally of the impact. I'm going to do this analysis if we're looking at deposits, but you can also take a look at members and loan balances too. So number one, if we have existing relationships with members of the closed branch, then we're going to lose some of that business. This is not to scale, but if we were to, of course, close that branch, the other thing to consider is the effect on the entire network. These other two branches will see a slight reduction in relationship, frankly, because they like to go shop by this branch that you're closing. They like to go eat over there. They have friends over there. They have work over there. So they're all part of the same network. So all in all, there's an indirect impact on your neighboring branches and a direct impact on your existing branch. And all those dollars that would be from lost members or reduction in deposits will go to the competitors, which is going to be that red oval. We do have to consider what we're actually going to lose in opportunity from natural growth. There's increases in population or higher incomes within the area. This all leads to greater balance potential within the marketplace. Now let's take a look at how much of that additional market potential you're still going to get. First, if we look at the retained branches, just like before, the network is not as strong. Therefore, we're not going to get the same proportion of that natural growth that we had in the past. But some of these households in that closed area will move their business over to your other locations. But there's still this little bit left over here that goes straight over to the competition. So that is the growth that comes from the increase in population, increase in income, that adds more deposits to the marketplace. We'll still get a fair share, but not the same that we had before. Now let's discuss what we're going to take from our competition. If it didn't come from just the marketplace growing, then that means we have to steal it from our competitors. When you look at the gray bars in proportion to the orange, much of the growth that we get actually comes from stealing from the competition. There's just a lot of shuffling back and forth of deposit dollars and loan dollars and members and customers. And what it really comes back to is your status within that marketplace. If you have 3 locations in a small market area, you probably are the top dog. If so, you're still going to be stealing a lot of dollars from the competition. Now, if you only have 2 branches and you close one of them, you might not be stealing anything at all from the competition. In fact, you'll be the credit union that others are stealing from. So with this example, we're going to see a few of those dollars come from the existing locations over to the competition because, again, the overall network brand, the network strength, the visibility of the network, everything surrounding the network has gotten just a little bit weaker. But we still are going to be able to steal some business from our competitors as these households open up their accounts at our other locations nearby. But the proportions change as compared to that natural household growth because it'll be harder to take away business from competitors than it will be to accept new business coming into the marketplace, like new residents. Therefore, unlike the orange bars with the natural growth, we're going to see a much smaller proportion of stolen business going to our other 2 surviving locations, and a larger chunk of that potential business that we were going to steal stay with the competitors. Now that we put together the financials, the next thing that we want to do is carry them out for at least 5 years. If we're thinking of reopening a branch a couple years down the road, then I can see maybe in 2023, the total impact will just be $7.4 million in deposits. If we continue on to 5 years, it's $11.2 million. You really don't need to go beyond 5 years because within 5 years, you probably would have had the chance to reopen this branch, but you put those dollars elsewhere and did other things based on the opportunity cost that you had computed here. Some of the takeaways from this chart: number 1, if you look at the red area, which once again would the impact on existing members, you'll see that it starts off strong, but it flattens out. And, in the first year, you're almost losing as much from the existing households as you would from the natural growth or the stolen households. But from my experience, and even through the last financial crisis, after about a year or 2, it really starts to flatten out. When it comes to natural growth households, again, a big part of this is increase in population. And I would suspect that if you're closing a location, it probably isn't an area that has very high increases in population. Therefore, you don't see very big climbs for natural population growth. Ultimately, the biggest factor here is going to be your status relative to your local competitors. If you have quite a few branches already in that particular area, you'll probably see a number that is lower than this 11.2. If you have only a few branches, you don't have a very strong network, it might be a bit higher. So what I put together are 3 key measurements that we want to look at when we consider closing a location. The inputs behind these metrics is pretty extensive. You're looking at market demographics, market growth, and converting that to actual balance potential. Then as you look at your existing members, you're not just looking at activity within the area. You want to look at the history of other branch closures, branch openings, how you fare against specific competitors and with specific types of demographics within each marketplace. So we ran our financial analysis and the results say we should keep the branch closed. However, there are some more considerations. We went through the pros already, so now we've got to take a look at a few of the cons. Number 1, let's still consider your people. Whenever we close some branches, someone's going to lose their job. So we have to consider how we might be able to repurpose them, put them into different areas, like the call center or ITMs or anywhere else. Next, your member promise. Whenever you close a branch, you are going to have angry members, so we want to consider that. Maybe we can soften a blow by leaving behind some technology, like an ATM or deposit accepting ATM, or even an ITM. Now let's consider your brand within an area. First thing is, whenever a business closes its doors, people speculate as to the stability of that particular business. So we want to make sure that we position this correctly and that it's just a temporary change, and we might open up a branch in the future. But the other thing is when it comes to the competition, everything that we did in a financial analysis really does cover the weakening of the brand and how your status has changed within the region, and how you won't grow that much market share from competitors anymore. But the one piece that's missing is what the competition is going to do tomorrow. Let's say one of your competitors closes a branch in your market. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go ahead and market around that area and try to steal some of that particular financial institution's business. Furthermore, if that goes well, you might even consider opening up a branch in that particular territory and taking over the entire region. This, like some of the other things we discussed today, definitely has to be considered, but there's a process for going through that kind of information. Finally, your capabilities. You probably learned a lot about your capabilities when your branch closed temporarily. Members have started transacting at other locations. However busy those other locations got, they're going to be a lot busier down the line. We have to still save room for growth within the marketplace. As time goes on, those transaction counts will go up, and you suddenly find that you do need that other location to help serve existing households, even though it wasn't that great for growing brand new households. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I tried to keep it brief, but I would love to continue the conversation with you. I'd like to offer a free market advisory session. That's where I spend an hour with you. We can talk about what we went through today, if you're considering keeping a branch closed, or anything else related to the branch, such as creating branch goals, maybe moving locations, opening up new locations, mergers, overall branching strategy. Let's discuss it. And so please visit my website, cuxl.com, and click that button to schedule a discovery call. It'll pull up my calendar so you can just pick a time. And thank you very much for your time today. I do hope to speak with you soon.